They never told you the truth about seduction, and there's a reason why. If you found out, you would stop being manipulated by your own desire. From an early age, you've been taught that attraction is about beauty, charm, or destiny. But Jung saw the dark side. Desire isn't born in the mind, it's born in the unconscious. And when you feel that irresistible chemistry, it's no coincidence. It's your shadow pulling your strings. The most disturbing thing is realizing that often you don't desire the person themselves, but your own wound reflected in them. What you call passion may just be trauma asking for a stage. The ego insists on romanticizing, but spirituality shows that there's a secret game between power, sex, and the unconscious. And in this game, you rarely realize you're not in control. The dark secret of attraction that no one admits. There's a secret about attraction that almost no one dares to admit out loud. It's not just about beauty, friendliness, or charisma. It's something deeper, touching directly on the unconscious. Carl Jung once said that true spirituality reveals itself when the ego loses control, and the same logic applies to desire. Have you ever noticed how sometimes you feel inexplicably drawn to someone who makes no sense in your life? It's not the looks, it's not the conversation, it's not even the compatibility. It's a mysterious, almost magnetic force. This dark secret is linked to the fact that the persona, that social mask we wear, cannot completely conceal the shadow work we haven't yet done. Deep down, what attracts us is precisely that which reveals our wounds. And here's the detail that few have the courage to acknowledge. Often, the archetype of the person we desire is precisely the mirror of what we try hardest to hide within ourselves. Imagine someone who has spent their entire life trying to be strong and unshakable. This person, without realizing it, may be intensely attracted to someone fragile, sensitive, almost vulnerable, because in the unconscious, there's a hunger to integrate this denied part. The ego says, "This doesn't make sense," but the shadow whispers, "This is exactly what you need." This game is so real that even everyday examples prove it. How many times have you seen someone trade seemingly perfect partners for someone no one expected? The explanation lies not in conscious logic, but in the archetypes that move behind the scenes. Jung understood that spirituality is not just meditation and inner silence. It also appears in these encounters that disarm our reason. The dark secret of attraction is, in fact, a call from the unconscious for you to look at yourself with more courage. And here comes the most uncomfortable part. What you call chemistry or spark can often be the exact reflection of your own wound begging for recognition. It's not just about romance, it's about individuation. When you feel this irresistible force, you can bet your unconscious is trying to pave a path for your ego to cease being the absolute master of your life. Shadow work at this point becomes inevitable because you can pretend not to see it, but the attraction will keep knocking on your door until you learn to deal with what it reveals. It's as if each person who crosses your path is a living book. Some pages bring pleasure, others bring pain, but all carry lessons. The dark secret of attraction is that no one completely chooses who they desire. The unconscious has already made that decision before you even realize it. And that's where the question almost no one asks arises. If you don't choose, who chooses for you? Why the unconscious chooses before the mind? Have you ever noticed how sometimes you meet someone and feel an instant connection before even exchanging a few words? This phenomenon is no coincidence, nor a beautiful stroke of fate. Carl Jung explained that the unconscious has its own intelligence, acting as if it were always 2 steps ahead of the ego. While the rational mind takes time to assess compatibility, lists qualities and appearances, the unconscious has already placed its bets. It is the unconscious that triggers that feeling of familiarity, as if you knew someone from other lives, when, in fact, you are simply recognizing an archetype that lives within you. Spirituality shows us that the outer world is a reflection of the inner, and this is confirmed in the way attraction unfolds. It is as if the persona, so careful to maintain its pose, is suddenly pierced by something beyond their control. A practical example of this is the famous love at first sight. Who hasn't heard stories of people who married after just a few dates, saying they simply knew? Science can explain it with hormones and brain chemistry, but Jung would remind us that desire is also the symbolic language of the unconscious. That fleeting encounter awakens something that was dormant, perhaps a shadow that needs to be seen, perhaps an ancestral memory that demands recognition. It's not romantic magic, but shadow work happening without warning. It's at this moment that we realize that the ego, with all its logic and rationality, arrives late. It tries to understand, create explanations, justify the choice, when, in fact, the decision has already been made silently within. Spirituality, at this point, is not abstract theory. It is practice embodied in the body, in the accelerated breathing, in the butterflies in the stomach. This silent power of the unconscious can be frightening because it exposes how little we control our own lives. Think about how many times you've felt pulled into a situation you hadn't planned, or even towards someone your mind classified as wrong. This is proof that choice isn't born in the intellect, it's born in the depths of the soul. And therein lies the beauty. The unconscious doesn't care about the comfort of the ego, it cares about your evolution. It knows which archetypes need to meet for you to awaken. It's as if the shadow work begins before you even decide. And when you least expect it, life has already placed the perfect person before you to poke at hidden wounds. The question that arises is uncomfortable but inevitable. If the unconscious chooses before the mind, isn't desire actually a spiritual calling in disguise? The forbidden side of desire, according to Carl Jung, never treated desire as something simple or innocent. On the contrary, he knew there's a forbidden side to the way we're attracted, and that this side is disturbing precisely because it exposes what the ego would like to hide. Think about how many times you felt attracted to someone wrong. Perhaps someone in a relationship, perhaps someone who doesn't fit the standards you hold yourself to. This uncomfortable desire isn't a mere whim. It's the shadow manifesting itself. Shadow work shows that what we repress within ourselves returns through the most unexpected path, and desire is one of those secret routes. The forbidden side is a reminder that the persona, however virtuous it may seem, cannot override the instinctual nature that lives within us. This tension between spirituality and instinct is precisely the field where archetypes dance. Forbidden desire doesn't necessarily mean something dirty or wrong. In Jung's symbolic language, it's an invitation. It's as if the unconscious is saying, here's a part of you that you don't want to see, but you need to acknowledge. Often what seems taboo is merely a reflection of a vital energy that has been mischanneled. How many people, for example, grew up in strict religious environments where talking about the body, sex, or pleasure was practically a sin. Later, this repressed content emerges in a distorted form, precisely in the desire that cannot be admitted. The ego tries to fight it, and spirituality has often been misinterpreted as repression. But the truth is that desire offers a path to healing. It's no wonder Jung said that what we deny within ourselves ends up governing our lives in hidden ways. Here's the key. The forbidden side of desire isn't meant to be blindly followed, but to be understood. It's like a mirror that shows, unfiltered, the part of you that's still exiled. If someone feels attracted to power, for example, it might not just be greed. Perhaps it's a call to integrate the leader archetype that's always been denied. If someone feels a desire for something dangerous, perhaps it's the shadow asking for the courage to face their own limits. Shadow work helps decipher these hidden messages, transforming what seemed like sin into learning. The forbidden side is, therefore, less about breaking external rules and more about listening to inner secrets. What if the desire you feel today, the one you'd rather hide, is precisely the code your unconscious chose to reveal what you need to see? How the shadow controls who you want. It's uncomfortable to admit, but you're not the one who consciously decides who you're attracted to. The one pulling the strings silently is the shadow. Carl Jung knew that the ego likes to believe it's in control, but the truth is, it's merely a spectator in a spectacle that's already begun behind the scenes of the unconscious. Think about that moment when you look at someone and feel an inexplicable magnetism. What's happening isn't romantic magic, it's shadow work in action. Your shadow recognizing in the other what you hide from yourself, and the more you repress it, the stronger the magnet becomes. That's why so many people end up getting involved with people who, rationally, seem like the worst possible choice. Desire doesn't follow logic. It follows the cartography of what's hidden within you. A clear example: someone who represses their aggression may be intensely attracted to dominant partners because the shadow finds in the other the expression they themselves refuse to acknowledge. The opposite also happens. Someone who denies their vulnerability may desire fragile, almost defenseless people, precisely because they need to integrate this denied side. The shadow is a kind of invisible scriptwriter, writing the plot of desire based on archetypes that have not yet been recognized. And this is precisely why, often, the love stories that most impact us are not the most straightforward, but the most intense. Those in which we feel like we've been dragged against our conscious will. Spirituality, at this point, serves not to deny desire, but to illuminate it, revealing what it's trying to communicate. The shadow controls who you desire, not to punish you, but to awaken you. This control isn't a prison, it's a map. When you begin to notice repeating patterns, always being attracted to emotionally unavailable people, for example, it's not bad luck, but a persistent lesson. The unconscious persists until you learn. Carl Jung said that what is not made conscious repeats itself as destiny, and the realm of desire is one of the arenas where this is most evident. Shadow work offers the key. When you recognize what is hidden, attraction ceases to be a compulsion and becomes a conscious choice. The game only changes when you decide to face head-on the shadow that guides your desires, and this opens the door to an even more disturbing question. If the shadow controls, to what extent is desire truly yours? The mystery of seduction born from trauma. Few people admit it, but much of what we call seduction is rooted in trauma. Carl Jung knew that desire doesn't arise out of nowhere. It's shaped by our deepest experiences, especially those that have left an emotional mark. When someone carries an unresolved wound, that wound becomes a lens, determining who seems attractive and who doesn't spark any interest. It's as if the unconscious uses seduction as a way to replay the old scene, hoping for a different outcome. Think about how many people are attracted to cold, distant, or controlling partners. At first glance, it seems like a senseless choice. But when you look deeper, you realize it's the same dynamic they experienced in childhood, now relived on an adult stage. Spirituality here isn't about escape. It's about realizing that what we call chemistry may actually be an echo of pain. This mystery becomes even more evident when you realize that two different people can react oppositely to the same situation. A child who grew up being ignored may become an adult desperately seeking people who will pay attention to them, or paradoxically may be attracted to those who ignore them because the shadow is accustomed to this pattern. Shadow work helps us understand this contradiction. It's not about enjoying suffering, but about unconsciously trying to correct an unresolved history. This is why many relationships seem addictive. Not because there is true love, but because there is a traumatic bond. Jung saw these cycles as an invitation to individuation, to the courage to look within and ask, what in me is choosing for me? The mystery of seduction born of trauma is that it seems like destiny, but it is merely repetition. And here's the most uncomfortable revelation. Trauma can be one of the greatest architects of desire. It sculpts the body shapes, the voice, the attitudes you unconsciously associate with attractive. It's as if each psychic scar were also a secret compass, pointing to people who carry the right trigger. But if this mystery isn't acknowledged, it becomes a prison. Spirituality at this point serves not to deny desire, but to free it from the prison of repetition. When you realize that what you call passion may be just an echo of the past, you begin to regain power over yourself. Shadow work allows you to break this cycle, transforming attraction into choice, not compulsion. But this raises another question. What if what you think is love is just your wound speaking louder? When attraction is just a reflection of your wound, have you ever considered that perhaps what you call liking someone isn't a choice, but a symptom? Carl Jung said that the unconscious always finds a way to bring to the surface what has been repressed. Attraction is often just a reflection of an old wound that insists on being examined. You think you fell in love because the person is charming, intelligent, or funny, but in reality, it's because they touch precisely the most sensitive part of your soul. The ego creates justifications, the persona invents beautiful narratives, but deep down, desire is born of an unhealed pain. It's as if each encounter were a mirror that reveals what you'd rather hide. This reflection isn't coincidence, it's the shadow demanding recognition. Spirituality teaches that nothing that attracts us is by chance, and desire is no exception. A practical example. Someone who grew up without the attention of a parent may spend their entire life feeling attracted to cold, distant, or emotionally inaccessible people. It's no coincidence. It's the wound trying to repeat itself so that this time the outcome will be different. But in general, it isn't. The wound ends up reinforcing itself, and the person falls into the same patterns, believing the problem always lies with others. Shadow work invites us to look at this dynamic with brutal honesty. It's not that you chose wrong, it's that the choice was made by the part of you that still bleeds. Desire, in this case, is merely an unconscious attempt at healing. Only, instead of healing, comes more pain. Jung reminded us that even what seems like overwhelming passion can be just the echo of an ancient absence. Recognizing that attraction can be a reflection of the wound is hard, because it means admitting that you're not as free as you think. But this awareness is liberating. When you realize that the person you desire so much has the same characteristics as what hurt you in the past, the possibility of conscious choice opens up. Spirituality enters here not as moralism, but as a light that reveals the hidden pattern. The ego resists because it prefers to believe that passion is pure and spontaneous. But Jung said, what is not made conscious returns as destiny. In other words, until you face your wound, you will continue to desire someone who only knows how to deepen it. The question that echoes is simple, yet devastating. Is what you feel now love? Or is it just the reflection of the scar you never wanted to see? The secret game between power, sex, and the unconscious. Carl Jung understood that power and sex are never separate. Both are primordial energies, universal archetypes that have intertwined in the human unconscious since the dawn of civilization. When you feel desire, it's not just about physical attraction, it's also about power. The seducer exerts subtle dominance over the other, and the seduced finds themselves surrendered to a force the ego cannot control. This is why so many relationships carry silent disputes. Who gives more, who withholds, who controls the pace of intimacy? This game is not conscious, but an invisible board where shadow work takes place without you realizing it. Spirituality doesn't deny this impulse. It illuminates it, showing that what appears to be mere chemistry is often an archetypal struggle between forces that seek to be recognized within you. Want to see a practical example? Notice how, in many love stories, one partner assumes the role of in charge, while the other takes the role of yield. It's not just about personality, but how each partner expresses their relationship with the shadow. Those who have repressed strength tend to seek out those who manifest it. Those who have repressed vulnerability tend to be attracted to those who embody it. In the realm of desire, this becomes a secret game. Sex mixes with power, pleasure mixes with hierarchy. The ego likes to believe it's in love, but often it's just acting out an unconscious dynamic. Jung saw this as a rare opportunity to realize that every intimate encounter is, in fact, a mirror. Not just of what you want, but of what you need to see about yourself. This secret game can be fascinating, but also dangerous. When unrecognized, it becomes a prison. Toxic relationships, emotional manipulation, and emotional dependence. When recognized, it becomes liberation, the chance to consciously integrate power and pleasure without being a slave to them. Shadow work is like removing the blindfold on this board game. You stop being a piece and begin to see the rules. Spirituality invites us not to demonize sex or power, but to understand that both are expressions of vital energy. The ego will always try to maintain control, but the unconscious knows this game is much bigger than its logic. And deep down, what life asks is, will you continue to be manipulated by this invisible game, or will you finally learn to play? The desire that reveals your most hidden shadow. Carl Jung said that nothing betrays the shadow as much as what you secretly desire. Desire is treacherous. While the persona tries to maintain an image of virtue and control, the unconscious slips through the cracks, revealing what you'd rather deny. It's in this space that the most hidden shadow lurks. Think of that person you'd never admit out loud that they attract you. Maybe they're not the type you usually defend. Maybe they even go against your stated values. And yet, the magnet is there. It's no coincidence. It's the shadow pointing to what has been repressed. Spirituality shows that desire isn't just bodily, it's the symbolic language of the soul. The ego tries to disguise it, but the unconscious exposes it. And in this game, desire becomes the clearest clue to what has not yet been integrated. A simple example, someone who has built a lifetime of being controlled and correct may feel inexplicably drawn to intense, chaotic, even destructive people. Desire, in this case, isn't about the other person per se, but about the energy they carry, precisely the energy the individual denies within themselves. Shadow work helps decode this message. It's not that you need to experience external chaos, but you need to recognize the internal chaos you pretend not to have. This is where desire becomes a key. It points to archetypes you haven't yet tapped into, the rebel, the wild, the forbidden. Jung understood that ignoring this only reinforces the compulsion. Desire doesn't go away because you repress it. It grows stronger precisely so you learn to look at it. The most hidden shadow always finds a way to reveal itself, and desire is one of the most direct channels for this. It's like a flashlight pointed into the basement of the soul, illuminating what you swore you'd locked away. True spirituality doesn't tell you to eliminate desire, but to listen to it. Because there, in what you're ashamed to admit, lies the hidden gold of individuation. It's brutal to recognize that often what attracts you most is also what threatens you most. But that's precisely why desire is a master. It doesn't reveal what you want, but what you need to see. The question that remains is a disturbing one. Is the desire burning within you today passion? Or is it just your hidden shadow begging to finally be embraced? The danger of the person you are attracted to, the person you desire, isn't always a gift from life. Often, they're a test. Carl Jung knew that the unconscious doesn't deliver exactly what you want, but what you need to face. And this confrontation often comes in the form of someone who stirs your oldest wounds. The ego, enchanted, calls it destiny. The shadow, silent, knows it's a trap. The danger with the person you're attracted to is that without realizing it, you can mistake intensity for love, manipulation for care, dependence for passion. How many stories have you heard of people who entered toxic relationships, swearing they were living the greatest passion of their life? Spirituality shows that if desire isn't deciphered, it becomes a prison. The archetype you deny finds a stage, and you become an actor in a play you didn't consciously choose. A practical example. Someone who represses their need for validation may be attracted precisely to narcissistic partners who offer crumbs of attention while maintaining control. The ego calls this irresistible chemistry, but it's just the wound begging to be touched again. Shadow work exposes the trick. It's not the other person who has power over you, it's your shadow that placed it there like a mirror. The danger in this case is believing the other person is the solution, when in fact they are a symptom. It's hard to admit, but much of intense love is nothing more than re-encountering our own scars. Jung said that what you most fear finding outside yourself is exactly what you need to recognize within yourself. This is why desire can be so dangerous, because it masks pain as passion. The real risk isn't just in the other person, but in your failure to recognize what's happening. Without awareness, the cycle repeats itself. You're attracted, you dive in, you get hurt, you promise never again, and shortly after, you meet someone almost identical, but with a different face. The unconscious persists until you learn. Spirituality teaches that no one crosses your path by chance, but that doesn't mean everyone comes to stay. Some come to reveal what you need to heal. The ego calls it bad luck, but Jung would call it unconscious destiny. The danger of the person you're attracted to is that they could be the very portal to your downfall, or, if you're aware, the portal to your liberation. But then comes the burning question: do you recognize the risk, or will you throw yourself back into the same abyss? The truth Jung saw in the psychology of desire, Carl Jung saw desire not as something superficial, but as a secret code of the unconscious. For him, each impulse of attraction is like an encrypted message, revealing hidden parts of who we are. The ego tries to romanticize, "I'm in love. It was love at first sight." But Jung knew that spirituality goes beyond pretty explanations. Desire is a mirror, reflecting both light and shadow. That's why it bothers, because what attracts another person is often not beauty itself, but the archetype that awakens something forgotten or denied within you. Shadow work becomes inevitable when desire is understood this way. What seems like overwhelming passion is actually a call to recognize what the unconscious already knows. The truth is simple, yet painful. No one desires by chance. The psychology of desire shows that every emotional choice is also a symbolic one. When you approach someone, you approach not only the real person, but also what they represent in your psychic theater. It's as if your unconscious casts actors to stage your inner dramas. You think you fell in love with a voice, a look, a gesture, but in reality, what touched your soul was the echo of something that already lived within you. Jung reminded us that even the most intense passions can be understood if you have the courage to look at the background. Spirituality doesn't ask you to reject desire, but to use it as a compass. Every attraction, however chaotic it may seem, is a portal to self-knowledge, and the danger lies precisely in ignoring the invitation, living as if it were merely coincidence. The truth Jung saw in the psychology of desire is that love, passion, attraction, all of these are just the surface of something much deeper. Deep down, desire is the unconscious trying to teach you to integrate what is still fragmented. The ego rebels because it can't bear to lose control. But individuation only happens when you understand that you are not free while ignoring your own shadow. Desire reveals, insists, nudges until you look. Shadow work, in this sense, is the only way to transform attraction into consciousness. And when this happens, desire ceases to be a force that drags you and becomes a guide that shows you the way. The question that remains is inevitable. Are you ready to see desire not as romance, but as spiritual truth? Now that you've heard all this, the question is no longer who do you desire, but what in you is choosing for you. Is what you feel today true love, or just the shadow repeating your wound in a new face? Carl Jung's psychology shows that desire is the secret code of the unconscious, and if you don't learn to decipher it, you'll remain trapped in the same patterns. So I ask you, how long will you allow yourself to be manipulated by an attraction that isn't a choice, but a reflex? Look at the relationships in your life. How many times have you confused intensity with love? How many times have you called fate what was actually just repetition? Spirituality does not ask you to run away from desire, but to learn to use it as a mirror. And now, tell me, what did this video reveal to you? What did it reveal about your most secret desires? Write in the comments, because sharing is the first step in shadow work. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because each new video will cut even deeper into your soul, and you won't want to miss out.